Hey everybody, Kyle here. Years ago, I was in a pointless internet argument on Reddit with someone about amateur art and established professional art. When you're looking at something, you just know if it was made by an amateur or a skilled hand. And this person was an amateur, and they were looking for genuine help and assistance. And they were like, "But what is it? What are these differences? I can't get better if you can't tell me." And I couldn't tell them. It's been on the back of my mind. Starting to come up with a few things that I've really noticed. There was one person when I was going to art school who painted extremely good representational artwork, and one of the professors walked by and made a comment, "You don't know how to paint, do you?" And everyone in the class thought this was utterly ridiculous because this person by far was the most technically accurate renderings of anyone else in the class. Everyone else was far more expressive and interpretive. This student actually agreed with the professor because they really didn't know what they were doing. They would take a tiny, tiny brush and meticulously mix colors. They would take a photo, break it down into a grid, and more or less copy pixels by pixels and just make tiny little brush strokes here and there. And over the course of 6 months or 8 months, they would build 2 paintings. And this artwork, when you did look at it from a distance, it was very, very impressive. But when you got up close, you could actually sort of see the monotony of the brushstrokes. It had a very flat look. I don't know how to describe it, but just as somebody who has painted as much as I have, I can look at it and it just doesn't excite me. Meanwhile, other people who their renderings weren't quite as technically accurate, they were still good. I could just tell that they had fun with the paint. The brushstrokes would almost enhance the form or the shape. The spectral highlights that were almost blooming would be gobbed on a little thicker and more opaque to kind of simulate it. The shadow areas might be more kind of hazy, shadowy areas with some glazes, so you kind of have some mysterious depth going on. It's not just flat black. Another thing I've noticed is just the brushwork. When an amateur or beginner artist is painting something, very often they will not use enough different brushes. They might just pick one medium brush and use that for the whole thing, and then switch to a super fine one to start outlining details. I find professional artists tend to use a much wider variety of different brush types and sizes in their work. But more than the type of brush is the way the brush is handled. A lot of amateurs will have a very consistent pattern where they'll just kind of do daubs in a mechanical grid-like pattern, where more experienced painters, every brushstroke might have a little bit going on, like you kind of fly at it like you're attacking the canvas, and then you change your speed randomly, you flick your wrist one way and just let it pew, pew. You kind of let the stroke go as it will. You play with it, you have some fun with it, and I think it creates a surface texture that just, it's more exciting to look at, and it's one of those things that you probably don't notice, but if you've looked at thousands and thousands of paintings, those are the sort of little subtle details that start to pop out to you and let you know how much experience the creator of that piece had. Student grade paints typically have the smallest amount of pigment they can get away with and have it still look like the color it's claiming to be on the outside of the package. Everything else is filler. Common one is chalk dust. Now, fillers will give the paint a very particular matte finish that's not quite the same as artist grade paints. And the student grade paints also tend to shrink more. So if you have areas with thick texture, the way it shrinks and leaves the brush strokes, you can just tell that it's cheap paint a lot of the time. And also just a variety of matte and gloss and different colors and brush sizes and techniques will give you a surface that has a lot of subtle variation going on versus more, maybe a large area with one color gobbed on consistently. So the type of paint and type of brush and brush stroke, those are 3 things that really reveal to me whether or not a piece was made by a beginner or someone with a crazy amount of experience behind them. So I know this random internet argument was over a year ago at this point, but hopefully this answer is helpful to somebody else. All right, have a good one. Bye.